I'm ready to rumble. Like, let's talk mergers and acquisition, ladies and gentlemen.
That's great.
Right?
That is
Okay.
Marion Ranchet.
And that is Evan Shapiro on the Media Odyssey. We're playing games this week, right?
Yeah, you came ready to play.
I am ready to play also because I'm gearing up for Vegas for the first time in my life. I'll be in Vegas next week. I'll be in Vegas in Jan for CES. I've never been to Vegas, and in 2 months, I'm going to be twice in Vegas. So I feel like I want to gamble. I want to play.
So you're ready. You're ready to gamble with other people's money on mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah, exactly. And then when I'm in Vegas, I will just take $1, put it anywhere, and be like, "I've done it." There you go, and then go have a drink.
That's great. That's how I gamble. I take like $5 down to the floor, and if it runs out, I'm done. But if I can make it go, I'll make it go. And
And
I don't
did that
usually
work for
win.
you?
No,
Yeah, so that's the thing,
it does
right?
not usually work for me, which is why I'm not a good gambler. And by the way, and why I don't really play the stock market either, although I do love to make prognostications, and usually my mergers and acquisition prognostications do not come true. I should
Yeah, same for
tell
me.
people that. I've been telling people Apple's going to buy Paramount for years. It hasn't happened.
Yeah, well, everyone when Apple, mine was actually Apple buying Roku. That was mine for a while. But I think there was wishful thinking on my part. We also had Apple
sometimes,
and Disney.
yeah, sometimes we talk about things that should happen and then they don't. Doesn't mean they weren't a good idea, right?
Are we saying that maybe Wall Street is thinking backwards and we're thinking straight?
Yeah, I think what's been proven over the last number of years, especially if you look at what's happened to Warner Brothers Discovery, just look at Warner Brothers, Warner Media, and look at the number of times that's traded out, and look at the value that's been lost in doing so. I mean, it's terrible. Or if you look at the Fox Disney acquisition, here's an acquisition. I think it was $45 billion, something like that. It's produced no new value. Yes, there's been some films that have come out, and some might argue that the enterprise value has gone up somewhat. But if you look at the valuation of Disney over the last 5 years, it is flat. It has not risen a dime in 5 years, despite buying all these things. And so I think sometimes Wall Street gets its priorities out of whack.
Yeah.
And it pushes companies to make moves that are not always great. And I think that's exactly why the media industry finds itself in such the sinkhole that it does right now. I'm hoping, I wrote this week about how, I thought MIPCOM was a real turning point.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you felt that as well. But still, there are so many things to undo. I mean, Paramount's going to lay off 2,000 people next week, 2,000 more people. And a lot of that's due to look at the CBS, Viacom, Paramount, Skydance, all this horse trading and all this bullshit. And the only people who really wind up in the positive zone on a lot of these moves from Wall Street are the bankers, the accountants, and the lawyers. Everybody else winds up losing. Not always, but very often, especially in media M&A. So with all that said, here we are. We're going to talk about a lot of the rumors that are swirling about mergers and acquisitions right now. We're going to talk about some of the mergers and acquisitions we wish happened, some of the ones that we hope don't. And we'll make some predictions about what's going to come out on the other side. You ready for that?
I'm ready.
All
Game
right.
on.
We each brought our own categories. Do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
So let's start with our friends from, Warner Bros. Discovery, because that's perhaps the hottest topic right now. And it does have an impact on, both your side and my side of the ocean. So, yeah, let's go with this one. That's the big next one everyone is waiting for.
Right. So I actually made a chart, which is on my Substack, and I posted on LinkedIn about handicapping the players in the big Warner Brothers, I don't know, auction that's going on. First of all, I think there's the first thing to talk about, which is currently the plan is to split Warner Brothers and Discovery and Max and Discovery Nets or whatever the hell you want to call them this month into two different parts. It would be the studio plus Max, and then all the cable channels, the Discovery channels, the Turner channels, the Warner channels, out in a different public company. That's the plan as Zaslav has painted it today. On top of that, Paramount has made an offer of $20 per share, which is a premium of $2 per share over the price right now. And it should be noted that Paramount is at not just a 52-week high, it's at like a 36-month high.
Yeah.
And, in part because the Skydance acquisition completed. And I think also they have a very good business plan, which is doing business with the oligarch in power, firing the people he once fired, doing the things that he once done. And it's led to a lot of really good things for the company in the immediate present, which is they're going to wind up with TikTok probably as part of their enterprise in the very near future. So they are flying high. They have cash on hand, although they also have a tremendous amount of debt. $15.5 billion in debt. So I think that's one of the reasons why Warner Brothers Discovery rejected that offer out of hand. They didn't even really consider it very seriously. The other big rumor out there is that Netflix was going to buy or make an offer for Warner Brothers Discovery. You've heard that a lot, and we've read it a lot, right?
We spoke about that a few episodes ago. Honestly, it makes sense for me.
It does make a lot of sense for them,
Yeah,
right?
I would love. Well, okay, love maybe
It
is a bit.
doesn't make that much sense for Paramount, frankly. It makes a lot more sense for Netflix,
Yeah, I
I
think
think. Anyway.
Netflix would do great with that deep library. We
Daily
spoke.
programming.
Yeah, we spoke about the value of, adding, some of those HBO Max subscribers, although we don't know how many are actually, subscribed to both Netflix and HBO. So I quite like the pair. And I think from a mindset perspective, for those people who have, stayed at that company for so many years, it perhaps one of the few companies that look a lot like them, right? Kind of,
Right.
very pay TV, edgy, moving, fast, etc. So I'd love to see that happen. Question mark studios, Netflix and theatrical. Ugh,
Yeah, but
I don't.
Netflix doesn't really I know this is gonna sound weird, but Netflix doesn't really have a studio. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, they make content and they technically speaking have a studio, but they don't have an output of TV and movies at the scale and level of most of the pay TV operations around the world. They just didn't start that way. That's an advantage for them. They're more nimble, they have less overhead. It's one of the reasons why they've been able to become profitable more quickly than the other streamers. On the flip side, they don't have a CNN, and CNN's a bit of a soccer ball politically right now, but they don't have a daily touch point of programming.
Mm.
And that's something they're missing. It's why they did the TF1 deal
Yeah,
in
one of the
France. And I think
reasons.
they'll do other deals like that. But they
Yeah.
have denied that they're making an offer, that they're considering making an offer. They don't typically buy stuff, certainly not stuff of this scale. And the fact that they too have about $15 billion in debt makes me think that this perhaps at a 20 billion, 25 billion, $30 billion valuation is too big a pill for them to swallow. So then I go to some of the other people I think should be likely.
Okay.
And you would imagine, given the state of their television enterprises, would be likely. Apple being number one. So Apple just announced today a deal with Formula One, and they doubled the price of the license fee for Formula One from what
Wow.
ESPN was paying. And I understand why they're doing that, but if one of the things that they most need is a lot more programming, which I think you and I both agree they do, this answers so many problems for them. Then the subscriber issue, that there's 100 million subscribers globally. That answers that for them. It takes care of the studio issue. It takes care of that for them. And they have cash on hand. They have $55 billion cash on hand. They have a lot of debt too, but cash is not their problem right now. Right now, programming is their problem. And their iPhone is hitting a wall in
Yeah.
China and around the rest of the world. It's flattening. It's not a product that's going to be able to sustain them for the next 25 years. Services has been the one area that has been growing for them over the last number of years, and it has hit a wall. It is starting
Yeah,
to
it's
stop.
slowing. Yeah.
So I think this is the perfect answer for them. I would say the same thing for Amazon. Amazon has many, many issues in their programming area. Their viewership is not, considering how much they've spent on programming,
Mm.
their their viewership is not where needs to be, which is why they just hired a brand new head of programming and content there, Friedlander from Netflix, or ex of Netflix. And so I just feel like this could be an answer for them as well. I just don't know why it's not a big purchase in the grand scheme of things for an Apple or an Amazon, and I just don't know why they don't get in the game.
So Apple, number one, quite like it. I have to say, when I spoke about that DNA, fit between HBO and Netflix, I actually see that happening as well with Apple. And I have to say that despite the fact that you're saying that they have a programming issue, the programming is in the quantity, not the quality. If I look at all the
Right.
shows that I've loved
Sure.
most these last few years, it's coming from them.
100%.
But to your point, there's not enough to keep people in. And I'll be honest with you, I had one for a while, and now I'm relying on the fact that Canal Plus actually super bundle Paramount and Apple. So all of their shows I'm watching as part of the Canal Plus bundle, essentially. So I do like that, and I don't understand the F1 deal, not to that scale. I think it really felt like,
$180
"Ooh, we've
million.
done this movie with F1. It's kicking ass, etc. Maybe there's gonna be a number 2 with
Yeah, I just feel like Eddie
Brothers."
Q. I think just Eddie Q likes Formula One.
So that I get, but when you look at the viewership numbers and the appeal of the sports, I mean, you had a bit of a, there was a wave these last. It was hype, but it's nowhere near, any
Oh, it
other
doesn't get the
sports.
kind of, yeah, not
Yeah,
near.
like
And
NASCAR would make more sense for the US than F1 does. F1 would
And
make
the and
more
the
sense
and the
in Europe, but
NCAA basketball tournament,
yeah.
and that completes their baseball,
Mm,
portfolio. So it is a really, I don't know why they don't get into it. I imagine that as this drags on, and it will, some other people will appear from the woodwork, but I don't
mm,
know. I don't know. And what frightens me is that the same, or if no one else comes out to compete against Paramount,
yeah,
and Paramount ups their bid, the same organization that controls Paramount, and CBS News, who just made some interesting moves in the last
yeah.
2 weeks with their management, will also control TikTok,
Yeah, it's a
and
lot of
then could
power
also control CNN.
in
And so
one
you
company.
have a real monolith of voice compressed into one family, the Ellisons,
Yeah,
Daddy Ellison and Nepo baby Ellison. And they clearly have politics on their mind
yeah.
when they make their business decisions. And it's worrisome for me as an American, as a lover of democracy, as a lover of freedom of the press. It concerns me.
Yeah, so again, we spoke to that, right? It's one less place where you can go, sell your content. So for the creative industry,
Right. Terrible.
it is terrible, especially if there's one way of doing, content moving forward. And to your point, it's becoming very, a monolith. But there's also the question of the integration, right? So they're just about to start the integration of Paramount. Like, that's gonna be
With
a
Skydance, yeah.
bloodbath. They have to do that, so
And
they're gonna do
again,
that for next year, and then do that again with people from Warner Bros. So I don't know how many people from, WBD are still there from, pre all of those sales. Like, who has been
a lot
able
of
to
people.
survive?
There are a few, yeah. There are
Well,
lifers. Yeah,
I
and that, I think that's part of the issue in the industry is when you see Warner Media being kicked around and integrated and then
yeah,
reintegrated and then reintegrated and then reintegrated, and then you see remember, it was Viacom and CBS, and then they were apart, and then they were together, and now there's a new integration, and then separation at NBC,
mm,
Universal and Versant, and then the separation of Warner Brothers and Discovery Nets, or an integration. Like, that takes up a lot of bandwidth. It
yeah,
takes up a lot of energy. It eats up a lot of money,
yeah,
and it really disturbs the equilibrium of the ecosystem. It's one of the reasons why media feels like it can't get ahead of itself.
yeah.
It takes 2 steps forward, it falls 3 steps back. And these M&As pushed by Wall Street and the banker industrial complex are a major reason for that.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
No, 100%. It's they're losing time when they really can't afford to lose time because we've seen, right, that shift, whether that's about around linear, around YouTube and social at large, how Netflix, as won that specific SVOD premium SVOD battle. So no, agree with you. Could it be that it's gonna be so? How about Apollo? How about private equity? Who
Yeah, yeah.
wanted to have
It's a great
Paramount?
question. Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's a great question. I think Apollo, they could sneak out and jump into this game very easily because they're making some interesting moves. I also think you could see them doing a roll-up of Warner and Versant and finding efficiencies there. So yeah, I think Apollo could really come out of the woodwork and be a major player in the Versant conversation, in the Warner Brothers
yeah,
Discovery conversation. And who knows? Like maybe they team with Paramount, or maybe they team with Apple or Netflix. So
yeah.
watch that space. I think that's a very good call.
Yeah, so I'm
Again,
reading your things, right? I'm reading what you write on LinkedIn. I love how you actually posted about this upcoming episode to see how people felt about that topic. And so
a lot of
someone brought,
engagement.
yeah, one of our listeners actually brought up PIF, so Saudi money.
So yes, the Public Investment Fund, which is one of the most Orwellian named things ever, because the public of Saudi Arabia have nothing to do with that fund. It's just the princes. It should be called the Princes Investment Fund, and they just were part of the largest leveraged buyout in history. $55 billion, the purchase with Silver Lake and a couple of other partners of EA,
Oh yeah,
Electronic Arts, which is one of the larger gaming publishers. They're making moves and they are investing in a number of different media properties all across the planet. So you could see them getting involved. One wonders.
yeah. Would that be
What?
approved?
Yeah, it is a good question. It is a good question. In normal times, when
No.
humans run the government, probably not.
Yeah,
Probably a Saudi-owned investment fund would not be able to purchase CNN.
yeah.
But in this environment with this motherfucker in the White House
Who
and his
knows? Yeah,
collection of kleptocrats in the Justice Department and in the FCC, you could see the Saudis who are deep in business with the Trump family getting approved to make that purchase. And then you could see the Saudi Arabian government owning HBO. So yeah, that could happen.
oh wow.
Scary.
Black Mirror, very Black Mirror scenario. But let's
Yeah, it
see.
is. It is. We are living in the black mirror.
This is very much that. 3 more years of that. Thank you so much.
So so let's take it to your side of the Atlantic, because unlike usually in socialist societies, we are seeing a lot of capitalistic moves and mergers
Yeah.
and acquisitions happening on your side of the Atlantic.
Yeah, we still like money just like you do. I
You
guess,
do. You
we
invented it.
yeah. We're a bit quieter in our ways. Let's put it like that. But so, of course, I have to mention MFE, which belongs to Nepo baby, former, Berlusconi, who recently passed away. But so his son, they've been pushing for years the European agenda, and so they are from Italy. They control Mediaset there. They made moves in Spain, and they recently they took over ProSiebenSat.1, which is a commercial broadcaster in Germany. It's the competitor of RTL.
So this is confusing for Americans.
Okay, tell
So
me why.
one
How
of
so?
the largest commercial media entity in Italy bought one of the largest commercial media entities in Germany. They also own something in
Spain.
France too.
No, in Spain.
Spain,
And they're
sorry.
making moves to Portugal. It's said that they're, making moves to acquire or, get control of Impressa, which is a Portuguese media group. And so their play, MFE means Media for Europe. It's in the name. They want to grow beyond Italy. And so, slowly but surely, they've been growing their influence in Spain, Germany, and so potentially Portugal. And so the question is, what happens next? Is it France? M6 from RTL was historically up for sale. A few years ago, they were supposed to merge with TF1. It didn't
Why didn't they?
happen.
Why not?
So at the time, it was a question of the competition authorities thought that it would be bringing,
Anti-competitive.
yeah, it was anti-competitive, but I think it's because they were looking in silos and they were looking only at commercial TV broadcasting. But if you look more widely as what happens on digital advertising, it's a different story. So I think perhaps this same thing, this same merger could happen in the next few years now. But it didn't happen, but it doesn't change the fact that RTL wants to sell. They've sold the Netherlands. It's done. It's done and
Why are
dusted.
they in a selling mode? Why is RTL in a selling mode?
They are keen to focus. It's part of Bertelsmann, right? So and they are keen to focus on the German markets.
So
And
they're going the
so
opposite direction. They're
yeah,
they're they're
yes,
diver they're undiversifying to
yeah,
focus more on the
exactly,
German market, which, by the way,
exactly.
outside of the UK and the US, the largest television market on the planet, I believe, or at
I
least
think
the
it's a
most
way of
lucrative.
saying, perhaps you can be, strong enough in a given market without having to be a pan-Europe. So it's completely opposite to what MFE wants to do. But so M6 can't be sold for another 3 years. The reason being that in 2023, their TV license was renewed. And so it blocks sales for 5 years. But, who
The
knows? So
government box.
yeah, exactly. So it's essentially MFE could go after M6, but only in 3 years' time. But time flies. And then there's the question of ITV, right? It's been said that it's up for sale. We haven't heard anything. Have you heard anything recently?
No, I have not. I've not heard
Oh,
any, rumors or anybody even
yeah.
kicking the tires.
So I think MFE is very much, there's still something to be done with commercial TV in Europe. We'll be stronger if we operate as a pan-European company
That
rather
is
than.
that is your thesis, right? That is your main
So
thesis is the only
that's
way
their
for the
thesis.
European.
Yeah, does that work?
But so
Is that
you
enough?
believe that too, right?
Well, yeah, I have to say that when I see, we talk a lot about American companies; those are global players, and so as much as I love Europe, it's a piecemeal, right, of media businesses. And so, how do you compete when everyone else in front of you, YouTube, Netflix, and others are very much global, right? So I believe in the hypothesis. I don't know if that's going to pan out. I don't know if that's going to be enough. My assumption would be that it's not enough to put, and this is the point about Versant and Warner Bros. It's not enough to put a lot of commercial legacy together and
Yeah,
all
that's
of a
what
sudden, everything is fine and dandy. There's things that these guys will need to do to still make sure that they keep they keep attracting all sorts of audiences, that they make sure that from an ad perspective, they attract beyond the same old advertisers and that they go digital and etc. All of those things.
right.
But I like that hypothesis. I don't know if that's going to work out. So,
Well,
but
there's
I
2
think
things
that's
though. Yeah,
interesting.
there's 2 things I would say. The first is I think we can agree, even though both of us are you're an actual socialist, I'm a wannabe socialist, but I
Well,
think both of us I think agree that the regulations that have been prohibiting some of these combinations,
yeah,
especially these regional ones in Europe, but also here in the United States, the regulation that would stop Tegna from being bought by Nexstar because of
yeah.
limitation of voice, or the rule that has prohibited Comcast from being able to buy Charter or Charter from being able to buy Comcast. These seem kind of silly and almost antiquated and adorable, compared to Google and Meta and Amazon and Apple and Netflix. The only way these companies can hope to compete is by combining forces and gaining scale that way.
Yeah.
No,
What else? What else can be done? I
so
don't
I think
I
it's
I I
time
don't
for the
have the answer.
regulator. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the regulators have to kind of grow up and get behind this stuff. On the
Well,
flip
especially
side,
if you guys on your side of the ocean keep, making all of those deals, happen, right? So it feels like right now it's very friendly to that type of deals. And so all of those companies are growing bigger and bigger. And yes, it has an impact on how things work in your market, but it does on ours too, right? So with Skydance buying Paramount, they're cutting people here as well. They're closing down channels. So they've announced MTV gone, Game One gone. The stuff that goes with it is gone as well. And so anything that you do is impacting us as well. And so those local markets are changing because of the US. And so what can be done to mitigate that? And none of those companies are going to become YouTube or Netflix tomorrow. So they have
right?
to play their strength, and their strength is being locally relevant from a production standpoint, still holding a lot of ad dollars, still holding a lot of audiences, while finding a way to again fight against that decline in linear, the fact that that audience is aging, etc., etc. So I don't
Yeah,
see anything else they could do honestly than trying to combine. But
right. But
interesting to your
go
point
go.
that RTL feels completely different.
Yeah, they're going a completely other way.
They're
That
they're going
but
the other way.
the other point I would make is, so these companies, they make the argument that we have to get together to gain scale to compete with these major global
Yeah,
big tech companies, mostly American companies. Then the first thing they do is they cut to the bone.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like, and I understand efficiencies, and that's one of the reasons why you do this. But if you take, let's say, Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount and you add them together, and the only strategy you have is to cut and not enjoy the breadth of content and
yeah,
audience that the two companies bring to the table as a non-duplicated audience, then you've defeated the whole
yeah.
purpose
It's
of
smart. I get
combining
it.
them in the first place. And that's what confounds me about a lot of these moves is, hey, we're going to put these companies together, but the vision is then we cut, 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 cut.
Yeah, yeah,
And then you wind up where Warner Brothers Discovery is. That's would be my fear of what's going to happen with ProSieben and MFE and future purchases. Just to quick go back in time. So Pierre Berlusconi, who now is the CEO of Media for Europe. His dad was Silvio Berlusconi, who was the original Trump,
yeah,
the original businessman turned politician, media guy, very much a model for the current president of the United
yeah.
States. Do you get a sense? I have no sense of Pierre. I think it's Pierre Berlusconi. Do you get a sense
Yeah.
of whether he's as much of a garbage pail
No,
as his dad was, or
no, I don't know. But then there's the question, of course, and you've mentioned that for the US as well, right? So, yes, I want to have a stronger Europe, but I don't want to have a uniform Europe. So, I don't want to have less diversity on screen, on topics covered, just because, there's this one guy and his company buying his way into, Spain, France, Germany, etc. So, yeah, it's tricky. Going back to your point about cutting, I mean, I get it. You come in, and aside from looking for efficiencies, if you're buying two companies who have very similar businesses, it is likely that there's a lot of doubles, people doing the exact same thing. So it does make sense to take a minute and be like, okay, how can we be more efficient? The only thing is, once you've done that, what is the strategy? I think we're never gonna, have those companies stop making cuts when they do that first exercise. But the thing that we can change, well, not a we, but you know, I'm sure you
the
think you can
royal
change.
we? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anyone or that we want to change is making sure that they have a strategy moving forward. And it's true that what they're missing is very often is that they tend to, buy, then cut, and they cut amazing people who made this thing so great. Instead of maybe taking a minute or two and say, okay, who are the key people here? Who could make that work for me? Who could take this combined thing even more amazing, instead of necessarily bringing someone from the outside, fresh blood, just because you want to have your guard of people with you.
Yeah, I think we've done some Q&A with people around the industry over the last couple of months because we've been traveling so much. And one of the things we ask people is what would they change about the industry if
Mm.
they could? And one of the things that has been most answered is I want to leave behind, I want to eradicate the CFO centric
Mm.
culture of a lot of these companies. The reason why these companies have CFO centric cultures is because these M&As almost always center on the CFO, not the vision of the strategy. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why they've not worked so well is that they're not strategy driven. They're only numbers, dots and spots driven. They're only about cutting, 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 getting efficiency. That's the whole strategy. And that's not building anything, that's buying stuff. And so when you look at Comcast, which was constructed entirely through acquisitions, when
Yeah.
you look at Disney, which is mostly through acquisitions over the last 30 years or 40 years. When you look at Paramount, which was made again in large part through acquiring and combining a bunch of
Mm.
companies, the strategy fell away.
Yeah.
It just became about the spreadsheets and the PowerPoint presentations and the firings. And that's my fear of the period we're heading into. That said, let's talk really quickly about two other potential
Cool.
M&A pools that are coming up. I'm looking at gaming in the United States. So EA just talked about the largest leveraged buyout in the history of business, $55 billion. I think that leaves companies like Roblox
Yeah.
and Take-Two and some of these other smaller gaming companies standing around looking at, well, okay, so now what's happening in the
Mm.
game publishing business? It seems like Xbox is getting out of the console business and focusing only on publishing now that the Activision acquisition is over. You've got Sony, you've got Tencent, you've got Nintendo, but then these independent gaming companies, I just think that EA is basically waving the white flag and saying, we're not going to be able to make it on our own. So we're
Yeah.
going to basically cash out and let the consoles fight it out. I don't know how much gaming you pay attention to, but I think you're going to see a decent amount of M&A and combinations happen in the gaming business over the next 12 months.
Yeah. I did not see that deal from the Saudis on EA. I didn't see it coming. I think at the top of the year, we're going to need to grade our own homework, but in a very impartial way, because I think we spoke about that in one of our first
We
episodes.
did.
And you had mentioned EA, Take-Two, Roblox. Roblox, I'm very surprised no one paid attention yet.
Well, they're now
And
worth too much to buy to a certain extent. They're worth almost $80 billion. And so,
yeah,
they're now worth more than they have been in quite some time. So they're going to be a harder pill to swallow. But you could see, some big companies out there, saying to themselves, well, Roblox is ripe for the taking, right?
yeah.
But certainly Take-Two, I think, looks like a very attractive addition. They have
How much? How
mobile
much is
gaming.
that one?
They're at 50 billion. Take-Two is at 50 billion right
Okay.
now. But they have
I can spend that.
Zynga, so they have massive mobile gaming,
Yeah.
but they also have some of the biggest console games and cloud games of all time. So I just think if intellectual property is being considered a premium right now, which is what the EA LBO says at least, then I would imagine a Take-Two, and maybe some of these other like Epic, which is kind of owned by Tencent, but not really. Some of these others might get in play as well.
I don't know Take-Two enough to I'm not so much into gaming, but I have to say it's fascinating to see where PIF has put money, sports and gaming, yeah? So we haven't seen them on other things. Makes me wonder, if they see a value in those, other businesses we're so much talking about.
In my mind, if you had to categorize the PIF strategy,
Mm.
other than I won't get into it, um,
Yeah, hold your
then
tongue on this one.
well, other than carving up journalists, I think that it is intellectual property, that it
Yeah,
is that it is
IP
investing
focused.
in solid,
Yeah,
timeless intellectual property that isn't dependent on a season or a series or a hit, but just trods along. Sports
yeah,
teams, Grand Theft, Madden, FIFA, whether it's not FIFA anymore, but the football game that
yeah.
EA has. Call of Duty, all of their titles, they're going to keep trundling along.
Mm.
So I think it seems to me, staying away from like film slates and veering a little bit more towards long-term,
Yeah,
repetitive, accrued intellectual property.
which I think is smart. Too bad others don't really think the same way, and we have another kind of money going after places like that. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So I have one more, but it's not one that is that we're saying is it going to happen? It's happened, which was a few weeks ago. Canal Plus and MultiChoice. And I think I chose this one because it's interesting in a number of ways. Canal Plus, traditional pay TV, MVPD business.
Who just
Uh,
split out from their corporate entity a couple of months
exactly.
ago.
A French company showing that, French companies are able to go, maybe not global, but I have to say with this
It is
acquisition,
global,
I think
yeah,
they're in 70 markets.
including South
With
Africa and other
Exactly,
countries.
and they have both, you have a studio, you have TV channels, they've invested in UGC, it's a movie exhibitor, so just like AMC theaters for you guys, on the French market, etc. So very much, the type of companies that I love in the sense that, they started on the French market doing this one thing, they've diversified, and now they have, a lot of bets across the world. They've invested in Viaplay in the Nordics. They've invested in View in Asia. And so MultiChoice, they were a shareholder for many years. And both Canal Plus and MultiChoice have been competitors historically. And so now Canal Plus was at that percentage where by law they had to take over. So they took over. Not sure they really wanted to, but that time, let me explain why. I think last year, I think MultiChoice lost, over 2 million subscribers. So MultiChoice is pay TV, but they're feeling, the economic pressure, and they have a lot of churn, So it is bleeding subscribers.
It's
Uh,
exclusively traditional pay TV?
yeah, and they have Showmax, which is the streaming vehicle, and actually belongs to both MultiChoice and NBC. See how everything is so
It's all
intertwined.
so confusing.
It's
Such
it's
a
it's
mess we
crazy.
made.
But that's an interesting one. And here you're gonna have this same thing with the integration. How are you gonna have this myriad of companies from Canal Plus find a way to integrate a myriad of companies from MultiChoice across so many countries? Canal Plus has been in Africa for years. Huh? I believe that MultiChoice had like 40% market share pay TV when Canal was around 18 or something. So it is making a very big pay TV player in the region, but they're really going to have to rethink their strategy, and that's where Canal
Everything,
Plus is
right? They're gonna have to
interesting.
rethink everything. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
the
But
business
Canal
is
Plus has
it's just
done
like
that.
pay TV here, it's dying, it's not going in the right
Yeah,
direction.
yeah, it absolutely is. They have to rethink everything, but Canal Plus has done that. They've operated that change. The only thing is that maybe there's a glass ceiling in Europe that you don't have in Africa. That is still, I wouldn't say virgin territory, but there's a lot of global players who don't want to be there. And Canal has been there for 30 years. So they have that advantage vis-a-vis others. Actually, Netflix did a deal with Canal in that region. So they could really very much, win, so to say, that super aggregator play with the right streaming first strategy, and while keeping the pay TV business,
And Canal has done
solid.
a nice job of transforming. They have a
They did.
very
Yeah.
progressive digital strategy. They are in streaming. They've done very well. And by the way, you called this at the beginning of the year that France was going to be the market to look at for a lot of major innovations in TV. If you look at this deal,
Yeah.
you look at the France One television, I'm sorry, the TF1 Netflix deal, the
Netflix.
France Television Amazon deal. There's just a lot of things happening in that
Yeah.
market that I believe are the tip of the spear of what's going to happen in media and specifically in television around the rest of the world. So you were right about that. And
See?
it's impressive, Canal, Plu, how they've done. So maybe they can. Let's put it this way. It feels like if anybody can take pay TV and transform it, it might be Canal Plu in these markets.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a marriage of perfect circumstances,
Mm.
meaning they're not the US, they're not the UK.
Yeah.
They're on a continent where it's a very young, this is the youngest population on the planet. 50% of the population in Africa
It's a
is under
growth market.
20.
Yeah.
50% of the
You wanna
population in Africa is under 20. And some of the fastest growing incomes and economies in the world are all in Africa.
Yeah.
Now they were starting from a low benchmark, but here they are. So I think let's put it this way, they had to do a lot of this. And it's going to be interesting to see how they manage to manage transformation there. So
Yeah.
very interesting.
Absolutely.
We went all over the globe today. So that's
I
our
love
mergers and acquisitions conversation. We're at the question of the week. I'll ask you first if that's okay.
I don't know.
Or do you want to ask me
Uh-huh.
first?
No, go ahead, go ahead.
So what's the one merger or acquisition that you think no one's talking about that should happen or everyone should be talking about?
Okay, so you mentioned it before the pods, and now there's nothing else I can think of, and that is Netflix buying Banijay. So I don't know where that's coming from, but when I think of it, again, another amazing French company, but with 100+ labels across the world. One of the deepest library when it comes to unscripted content, whether you're talking game shows or docs, etc. And then, to our point at the top that Netflix could use, a library without the theatrical element of it. Like, will I put these movies on? It's only TV, mostly TV. I'm sure they do a few movies here and there. This could actually make sense.
Yeah, it's a
What do you
rumor
think?
I heard. It's a rumor I heard on the last night in,
Add brown sugar? That's not a
yeah,
good rumor.
at Brown
Yeah,
Sugar,
that's not a good
which for
source.
those who don't go to MIPCOM is basically a pub crawl. But I was not drinking. So that should be noted.
Okay.
I wasn't sober, but I had stopped drinking many hours before. And so yeah, no, this was a credible rumor that I heard that it was more than just a rumor that talks had been had. I was not able to confirm it from many people. I did hear other people heard the same rumor, but from the same
Oh,
person. So
wow.
it doesn't
No,
really
that
count.
doesn't count. And that person was drunk, not
Right.
counting.
Well, yeah, okay, but they're always drunk. But I think the key here is, yeah, it actually makes a lot of sense for both companies.
Well,
Banijay
Banijay, I
just
don't know. I don't know if Banijay needs Netflix.
I think look,
Netflix, I
I think
see the
anybody who's selling content right now
yeah,
would love to have a guaranteed buyer. And so the idea that you would fold the studio inside and change up the whole operation to make it, this is I think a $4 billion company, Banijay.
yep,
And, Netflix is a $500 billion company.
yeah,
So you could see how it could digest all of that and still make all of the content that Banijay is making, unwind the deals that they're doing, and turn it into a vertically integrated content platform that, really I mean, think about the shows that they make, right?
yeah.
So I, I'm not saying this would happen. I can't imagine actually it could be completed just by dint of so many different hoops to jump through. But I
Mm,
do think whether it's a Banijay or a Lionsgate, or someone of that ilk, I do think you're going to start to see more and more production companies or studios like Banijay, Lionsgate,
yeah,
Sister in the UK, start to become the target of these platforms who need reliable supplies of content, high quality,
yeah,
reliable supplies of content, and they can't afford to be paying market prices for them ad
mm.
nauseum for the continued future. So I think
Interesting.
that's a segment to look at.
So consolidation at the production level is your thing. This is the next thing because we've been talking a
I
lot
think
about.
less consolidation of production, like studios buying studios, and more platforms buying studios. Yes.
Okay. Well, that makes sense because, this thing of saying, oh, you need to build everything yourself. If you want to be agile and go fast, it does make sense to tap into someone else's, expertise at producing. So Banijay and others, but it's a good example of someone who's able to produce content across the globe. So at scale, both local, etc., formats that are traveling easily. So Netflix would never be able to do that on their own.
No, and to be blunt, the way that we sell and buy television is still really antiquated.
Yeah.
So much of it could be streamlined, and it does feel like the platforms are the arbitrage of content production and acquisition and all this other kind of stuff is it needs to be updated. The flip side
Mhm.
of that is when you look at these platforms, take Apple aside, library content winds up being some of the most watched content on these platforms.
Yeah.
These
Yeah, we
companies have a
come for
lot
the
of library.
news, so
Lionsgate
to
has a
say. Yeah,
massive library. Banijay has a
yeah,
massive
yeah,
library. So
yeah. We come for new stuff and, we stay for the library, right?
yeah,
That's
right, exactly.
the
I come
appeal
for the
is
show. I
something
stick.
new. Yeah, and you stick around because there's other things that you wanna devour, but yeah.
Well, this was a great conversation. Thanks so much. I'm headed to Europe, and you're headed to the States.
Absolutely, I'm loving it.
We're
We're
gonna
not gonna
cross
see
in
each
the
other, but it's
air,
okay. It's okay.
and we'll see each other next week on this space. And thank you so much for listening or watching. That is Marion Ranchet.
And that is Evan Shapiro.
This has been the Media Odyssey. We'll see you next week.